Welcome to Coinology, the podcast.
You ain't getting no money if you constantly worried about what everybody else got to say. If you constantly got your eyes on what everybody else doing, you ain't getting no money. When it comes down to closing a deal, I get it done. Every single one. I'm the certified deal closer.
Welcome to Coinology, the podcast. Hey, and welcome to another episode of Coinology. And today we have none other than Mr. Miguel Wilson in the studio. Y'all give it up for Miguel. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you. I know we've been trying to make this happen for a while. Yeah. Busy schedule.
Right.
Yeah, you're out there making all them custom suits.
Yeah, that, and we had the Polo Classic that was tying up a lot of my time too. But we're here today.
Yeah, we're here. So Miguel, first love, fashion?
Yes.
Fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Second love?
I'll say first love is God.
God, okay.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Second, fashion.
Yeah.
And then polo.
Horses, period. I think, polos is one aspect, but I just love horses.
It's when I read the pre-production notes, I was amazed by that because you don't find a lot of black men from D.C. that love horses, right? What part of D.C. are you from?
I grew up in Northwest Washington.
Okay.
But I'll say this, I think that a lot of us never find out what it is that we love because we've never been exposed to it. Mm-hmm. So I never would have known my love for horses had I not given that opportunity to be exposed to horses.
So what is it about horses that you love?
It's a connection. It's the for me, growing up in Washington, not knowing at the time how stressful the environment was. Mm-hmm. Being around horses, and I think also just being in the environment that horses are in, usually a country setting, brought about a peace for me that I hadn't known before. Mm-hmm. So I think it's not just the horses, but just the environment that I found them in. Being with the trees and the grass and it's just brought about a tranquility just being in that environment.
How old were you when you realized that you had this love for horses?
8 years old.
Okay, so it was early on. Okay, so you are from Northwest.
I grew up in Northwest Washington. So one summer, and I don't know how this came about, but my parents sent me to a camp. It was in Virginia.
Okay, what part of Virginia? Because I'm a Virginia girl.
This was in Dumfries, Virginia.
Okay, that's so northern Virginia.
It's like Middleburg, out, country part, in the mountains, Blue Ridge Mountains. That's what it was.
Okay.
It's in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia.
Okay.
Okay. So it's about 2 hours from Washington, D.C., down 66, going west.
So they sent you out there 8 years old.
Yeah, I went to this camp, and for the first time, I saw a horse, and I don't know, something clicked that day. I had a passion instantly, a love instantly, and I just wanted to be around the horses. And the horse aspect of the camp was a very small part of the camp. It was actually a Christian camp, but horse was just one of the different activities that they had. They had fishing and camping and arts and crafts, and it's a whole bunch of a lot of different activities. But many of which, it was my first time being exposed to. So, but when I got around the horses, it definitely was a life-changing situation.
Did you find most of the other kids had the same affinity for the horses, or was it just you?
No, my sister was there, and she could care less to this day about a horse. Yes. So, no.
Okay, so then you go back home.
I go back home, and I talk about horses constantly, but I'll say this is one of the most significant aspects of that whole experience. Because I couldn't be around horses, I went to the library and just got books and started reading everything I could about horses. And not being a good student, a great student ever in life, until I went to college, that was really where a lot of my education came from, being able to read and gain through my love for horses, I read. Mm-hmm.
So Northwest D.C.,
yes.
Not good in school. Mm-mm. Okay. Young African American.
Yeah.
Was it middle class family? What type of family?
So I would say lower middle class. My dad, I was adopted, so everybody knows my Latin father, who, but my mother, she got married. My biological father and my mother were never married.
Okay.
So my mom married her high school sweetheart. He in turn adopted me.
Okay.
And so I got the last name Wilson. So he.
So, but you're actually half
Dominican.
Okay, so Miguel. That's what the Miguel piece comes.
From.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So my adopted father, he was a great man. He took me on his own son, and he worked at the post office.
Okay.
Down the street from where we live, North Capitol Street, and so. We were lower middle class, but a lot of kids I grew up with didn't have dads at home. So I was kind of unique and different from that aspect, that I had a father at home.
I'm sure the other kids in the neighborhood probably didn't get a chance to go away to camps and so forth either, right?
No.
Right?
No.
So they probably saw you as a little special.
Well, I don't know that they knew, because I didn't necessarily talk to about those aspects. You couldn't talk about horses in my neighborhood. Everybody, in my environment, everybody boxed, played football.
Something.
For the most part,
One of the things I talk a lot about, Miguel, when I was young too, I used to have to hide being in like AP courses or accelerated courses or grade point averages and things in the nature, because it just seemed as if when we were younger, it was no celebration of being smart. So you kind of kept that a secret. It wasn't, you couldn't be cool and be smart at the same time. But today, thank God, is different for us.
Yes.
But what allowed you to have that push to even desire to go to college?
Well, I'll tell you, because I had zero desire to go to college, quite frankly, all the way through 12th grade. And I was having a conversation with my grandfather one day, and he said, what do you want to do when you graduate? And I said, my first thing was boxing. I said, well, I think, I'd like to become a pro boxer, because, I like to fight. And
well, a lot of the dudes from D.C. were boxers.
Yeah.
A lot.
You grew up in Washington, you're going to box.
You're going to box,
Yeah,
right. And they used to put you in boxing, too, to let you let off some steam if you were real active.
Yeah, but, that was the thing we did, though. Everybody boxed. Matter of fact, you couldn't even street fight and start wrestling, because guys would break you up and say, no, y'all going to box. Big, older guys would always make you box it out. So, I told my grandfather I think I'd like to become a professional boxer. He said, man, and at the time I had a lawn service, cutting grass.
Okay.
And he said, man, that's a great idea. You should do that. So you can put your lawn service on the bottom of your shoes. That way when they knock your ass out, you can market your lawn service company. And that was funny at the time, but at the end of the day, it kept me from pursuing that. And I said, well, maybe I'll go in the military. And he said to me that, if I wanted to go in the military, I should go in as an officer. Now, I didn't know what that meant. I had no idea. But based on his conversation, I went to my counselor in high school and asked him, and told him I wanted to become an officer in the military, what I need to do, sign up. And he said, well, you got to go to college for that. And I was like, what? So I almost said no.
Okay.
I almost said no. But as God would have it, I went on, just let me just go with it. I went with the flow. Next thing you know, I got accepted at Bowie State.
Okay.
I hadn't even taken my SATs until after I graduated high school.
Wow.
So I had
how
no
did you
intention.
how did you get accepted?
I got accepted after the fact, I got accepted on a what's called a contingency or something. Yeah. And it was contingent on me doing well.
Okay. Okay.
So I got accepted, and for the first time, I applied myself, though, when I went to college. I had never really applied myself academically. I never thought I was smart.
Again, putting yourself in an environment that you would not normally be in. So you were, you experienced the horses.
Yeah, but the thing was, you said something key, I think. Being smart wasn't necessarily cool. And so I don't know that I ever really pursued being smart or trying to be perceived as, smart in school. It was more being cool than anything. Cool. Right. So I wore clothes. I dressed. Everybody knew me. I was the fly guy, that type of thing.
Best dressed.
I was best looking, actually.
Okay. All right. So, because I know back then, like you said, growing up we fought for best dressed,
Yes.
best looking.
Yes.
You know, no one was thinking about
Smartest.
yeah,
Most
highest
likely to
GPA,
succeed.
most likely to succeed. I was like, best dressed, please. You know, that
Yeah.
was the focus.
Right.
But again, the era that we grew up in and what the focus was, and again, what you're exposed to.
Right.
Right. So you go off to Bowie State.
Go to Bowie State, get an ROTC. In ROTC, I met a man who ran our ROTC at Bowie State. His name was Captain Joseph Bozeman.
Okay.
And he was one of those guys that changed my life. I think inspired me in a different way. And just give you a lot of one story on him that really captures the type of man he was. I'll never forget running in a PT test one day, and we were running, and everybody's running hard, and I ran across the finish line, and I was vomiting, throwing up, crossing the finish line. And he called everybody around afterwards, and he said, "This is what you should be doing, throwing up. When you did your best, this is what you should be doing." And he pretty much ridiculed everybody else for not throwing up.
Because he knew they didn't push themselves.
He said, and that was the type of man he was, that, you know, he required you to give 100% in everything. And so I think I had never been pushed in my life to be the best that I could be.
Yeah, the comfort zone.
Yeah, not the Army said, you know, be the best, be all you
Right,
can be. But
right.
this was real life. He was the type of guy that, you know, when you thought you reached your limit, he pushed you a little bit further. And so I think that inspired me to really see myself differently and to really challenge myself. For the first time, really challenge myself to do and be bigger and better than I thought I could be.
So when you went to Bowie, what did you expect your degree was going to be, and what did you think you were going to do with your life?
I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Okay.
I always knew I wanted to, you know, I had, even in high school, I had a little, couple businesses. Every day I sold candy.
You
from
know
10th
what?
grade.
I used to sell candy too.
Yes.
But I also used to do the lemonade stands and all that.
Yeah.
I was an entrepreneur in my spirit, but the difference, Miguel, is I didn't see entrepreneurism around me. So I didn't really know, even though my grandfathers on both sides of my family, which died before I was born, they were both entrepreneurs. So I had it naturally in my blood.
Yeah.
But I did not think that I was going to ever do it. I thought, you graduate and you go off and work at the credit union, you retire, you go to church on Sunday, that's what you saw. So did you see entrepreneurism around you?
I did.
Okay.
My father, so my biological father, although, you know, I was adopted, I spent a lot of time with him as well.
Okay, so you knew who your father was.
I knew who my father was,
okay.
yeah. And he was a interior designer.
Okay.
So he had a furniture store.
So you got that into you too.
So I saw him. And then my grandfather had a liquor store.
Okay.
In D.C. And although I was too young to work in there, he would have me work in the back, you know, stocking the shelves or putting stuff in the cooler, beer and sodas in the coolers and all things like that. So I spent a lot of time with him growing up. He was the one that would always take me to the barn when I was riding horses and you know, just a big part of my life throughout, you know, growing up. But working at that liquor store, you know, he always told me, you know, work for you. Don't work for yourself. Work for yourself. And that was his repeating theme throughout.
Work for yourself. But let me ask you this though, Miguel. Do you think that working for yourself is for everyone?
No.
So why do you think he was telling you that?
Because his experience. He's speaking from his experience. Working jobs, he never had a good experience. Even in the military, when he told me about going in as an officer, you know, when he told me that story, when he explained to me why he wanted me to become an officer, I could hear the pain in his voice, and even telling me about how the white officers treated him and made him clean toilets and made him do a lot of demeaning jobs. So his purpose was to have something, for me to have something better. And, you know, I'll never forget, after graduating college, going into the Army, and I was on base, and these white policemen tried to stop a friend and I, and they spoke to us derogatorily. And the guy I was with, he was an officer. He stopped him, told him to get out the car, and he told him, "I'm an officer." So don't you ever talk to us that way again. Now, I'm scared because these are police, and my man's, pretty much checking the police. But in the military, rank matters.
Really?
And so when he checked them, he told them get back in their car and get out of here.
As a black man?
As a black man, telling these two white guys who were...
And what year was this?
Subordinate to us. This was 1989.
Because I don't think you can try that today, do you think?
Yeah, you're an officer.
Really? Today, you believe in the society that we live in today?
Society has nothing to do with the military.
Right, but it just...
The military, they'll tell you, this is not a democracy in the military.
Okay, so in the military, you find...
You're an officer.
You are getting the respect.
If you're an officer, you are... you have rank on any enlisted personnel. I don't care if they've been in the military 30 years.
White or not.
Your first day in the military, they have to call you sir. They have to salute you. They have to, there are rules. So this is not something that's just randomly, these are rules. Military is a very stringent operation, okay? And there are rules. You cannot arrest an officer if you are enlisted. You have to have an officer to do this. Certain rules apply, period. There's no bending of those rules.
So your grandfather did not want you to have to go through the military as an
enlisted person. He wanted me to be an officer because the officers are the bosses, I guess you could say.
And I get that, but this is the thing. Racism and sexism is so predominant, and prevalent that I find that so hard to believe that a black man, even as an officer, can dictate.
In the military, yes. Yes.
What about black women?
Yes.
But
see, let me tell you something. You're taught to respect the rank, not the man.
But I often...
Listen, you're taught to respect the rank, not the man. Now, you have to earn respect as the man. Okay? There's a difference. So you, as an officer, people respect your rank, but they might not respect you.
Right.
You still, I think, should try to earn the respect of people as a person, and you do that by how you treat them. So as an officer, it's important to me. If I made you get down and do push-ups, I'm gonna get down and do push-ups with you. I'm gonna show you that I'm just not, mistreating you. I'm trying to help build you.
That's a good leader.
Yeah, that's leadership.
But everybody's not a leader.
So guess what? You have bad leaders, and guess what? You subject to bad leadership. You still have to do what they tell you to do, be it good or bad. So that's not. But if you want the respect of people, they'll respect your position. That they may not respect you as a person. So to me, I wanted both. So I didn't want you to look at me as, just with these bars on and not as somebody worthy of command.
So how long did you stay in the military?
6 years.
6 years. What made you decide to leave?
I wanted to pursue business. I was always a businessman. And like I said, I grew up in high school selling candy and I had a lawn service business, had a photography business. I've always had some type of business going on.
So you immediately left the military. Did you have a plan? Did you have the plan, or did you leave?
I did corporate for a while. I worked for Pillsbury Food Company in sales, and did that for about 6 years, 7 years. Then I went to work I got several promotions. So I ran North Carolina and South Carolina for Pillsbury, which was a great experience because I'd never really been outside D.C. doing much, and just being exposure there was great.
I think that's important. I want to stop there because you said two things that I think a lot of people slide by. One of the things that I attribute a lot of my success to is, one, experience in corporate. I think it's important that people have an experience working for someone else.
Yes.
Okay? Because today in this market that we're in, the youth, they think they can just graduate from college and immediately, bam, I got all the answers, I'm the CEO. But you don't know anything about anything. And I know for me, what allowed me to build such a successful conglomerate is because I worked for a successful conglomerate. I worked as an executive for General Electric for a number of years. Okay. Yeah. And so closing multi-million and billion-dollar deals for a major corporation will teach you how it should be done, what to say, how to structure, and it gave me a leg up against a lot of my competition. And I think that's very important. The other thing that you said that's important is that you spent a lot of time in sales. And I think that if you're going to be successful as an entrepreneur, you have to know how to sell. If you don't know how to do nothing else, if you can't sell yourself, sell whatever it is, because I can sell water to a well.
Right.
I can.
Right.
Okay. Then you might as well close the door. Mm-hmm. So I think that those are two attributes I think a lot of these young folks are missing out on. What are your thoughts on that, Miguel?
So I think the corporate environment provides you with a polish, if you will, that you as a black person in a corporate environment, you have to learn certain things. This is inevitable. You want to be successful here. For the first time, I think I had to just learn how to work with white people. I went to a black college.
That's right.
And so just seeing how they operate, and it's a different culture.
Let me ask you this. I'm glad you said that, because lately I've been struggling with the fact that I went to PWIs, both undergrad and graduate. I went to VCU undergraduate and University of Maryland graduate school. But my daughter is a junior in college, and so I've been junior in high school. And so I've been talking with her about preparation for college, and I've been really pushing HBCU experience on her. Because I often feel as if I missed out on that. I look at the homecomings of this and that. However, I grew up in such an urban environment that I went to PWIs for two reasons. One, I didn't have the experience of someone around me really to say you should go to HBCUs. In my environment, it was you just need to go to college. I was just thankful to be going to college, right? But the other piece is I think that I needed the environment of not being in an all-black environment. When I went to VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University, it was very racist there. The professors, the way they graded our work, what they taught us, they actually taught me things about the totem pole. They taught me that there were levels to racist. And this is what you're teaching. This is what they're teaching the class. And I just happen to be one of the very few blacks that's in that class. But they taught, white, Eurocentral, was the top. Then, went down the Asians. Then it went down to blacks. Then it went down to the Spaniards, and they had different levels of the Hispanics. And at the very bottom, they had the Mexicans, right? And this is what they were teaching us in class. So all of these white folks sitting in class with me, this is what they're being taught, and we had tests on this. So the point is, though, I remember having arguments with my classmates about racism. It does still exist. I'm glad that I went through that, though, because it allowed me to merge into society that much easier. So when I went into the corporate arena, I was able to work with them without fault. How did you merge in? When you come from a full HBCU background, everything is black power, everything is pro for you, and then you go out here in the real world and nobody's checking for you.
So let's just start with the fact that I wasn't prepared to go to any college.
Okay.
I needed an HBCU situation because they were more sensitive to me as a black man needing perhaps some additional support. To the teachers cared, the professors cared, and for me, a person who made up my mind to go to college the last minute and who got accepted on a conditional situation at an HBCU probably couldn't have got accepted in any white school at that time, period. So I wasn't prepared, but the thing is, look at me now. That experience prepared me to even go on to a PWI for graduate school, in which I was a straight A student.
Okay.
So I excelled in that environment once I was prepared for it. And it took the HBCU situation to prepare me. So that's not, so my education wasn't inferior in no way. It actually prepared me for life. It prepared me to go on to graduate school and also to work in corporate environment. And I'll tell you the thing was, okay, I entered into college not feeling inferior.
Really?
Yes, academically.
So you had the imposter syndrome, like, am I supposed to be here?
Well, I never excelled in school.
Mm-hmm.
I never did well in school. I never, I could read really well because of my exposure to the horses and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And but I never excelled academically. I never was challenged to push myself.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't care about whether I got a C or D. You understand? So it was. So for me, and I'll say that I think it's individual. Now there are people who are academically exceptional.
Mm-hmm.
And choose to go to HBCU not because they need it for the same reasons I need it.
Mm-hmm.
You understand?
Some people choose.
Some people go to PWI's schools throughout their whole life and need the HBCU to help them figure out who they really are, because
find their identity.
Mm-hmm. So I think that HBCUs can serve a multitude of purposes for different people at various stages. It is the backbone to our society when it comes to black education. There was a time, and I think HBCUs have done a great job of turning their purpose to match society. HBCUs started out because we couldn't go to any other schools. Mm-hmm. They were developed to give us opportunity to go to college. And I think now it's turned into an area of creating competitive. Harvards are competing with HBCUs now.
Yep.
You understand? To get the top talented people. Society has always made anything black appear to be less.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Society has always tried to make an effort to make us feel inferior.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And it worked on me as a young kid because I grew up in D.C. and everything black was bad. Okay? I grew up in an environment where, you step outside and a black man was going to try to rob you. A black man was going to try to beat you up. A black man, it was black people doing this to black people.
Mm-hmm.
This is the environment I grew up in.
And that's the truth.
It was self-hate.
Mm-hmm.
It was self-hate. And so then when I go look at the TV in that same neighborhood and I see Leave It to Beaver and everybody live in nice houses, everybody has picket fences, everybody's treating each other, they laughing and joking all the time, nobody's beating each other up. Brady Bunch. I'm looking at everything on TV said the white people were great people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Nothing black was good. Everything, I look at TV even, I see Sanford and Son, they in the junkyard.
Mm-hmm.
I look at Good Times, they in the hood. So everything black was always, in my mind, inferior. So being around those horses took me out of that environment, put me in an environment where, for the first time, I was exposed to white people.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought of them as being better. See, and this was the brainwashing that went on that HBCUs had to turn around in my life.
Turn around.
Right.
Did you find that when you were, you were a equestrian, that's the correct term, right? So what about your posture? Is there a certain way, like I know when you're a gymnast, you must sit a certain way. You did. What about that for you, right? Because I know that a lot of times as African Americans, we are, because our body structure is so different, sometimes we are judged because we don't have certain things. Did you experience a lot of the judgment being an African American equestrian?
In that environment, being around white people actually for the first time, they embraced me. It was, I didn't have any issues. Now, they may have thought or whatever, but nobody ever showed me anything negative.
Okay.
The kids there at that barn, we would all clean horse crap on Saturdays. We would all feed the horses. We were all of us just had a passion for horses, and we worked to get an extra 30-minute ride. Mm-hmm. All of them didn't have money. All of them didn't have horses of their own. Some of the kids, I'm not going to say their condition was like my condition. I was embarrassed by mine, so I wouldn't talk about my situation at home.
So the kids would ask you questions and you wouldn't talk about it?
No,
or
they
you just
didn't.
avoided that?
No, we did. It wasn't never a question. Nobody talked about stuff like that. It's just that, I wasn't a big talker. I just listened. Mm-hmm. So
why were you embarrassed, though, Miguel?
I was embarrassed because I had roaches at home. Mm-hmm. I didn't think they did. Mm-hmm. I was in the hood. Mm-hmm. You know, I know based on what I saw on TV that the life they live in probably is nowhere near the life that I'm experiencing.
So did you create an image?
Of course, you know, the image comes from TV and the stuff that they put in front of you all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You can't help but have an image.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And so let's talk a little bit about your love for fashion, though.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Where did that come from?
My grandfather was always a meticulous dresser.
Okay.
And my dad too. Both of those guys just had. Yeah, my grandfather, when he was in the military, he went over to Europe, and he bought a lot of clothes there, and just really had a great sense of style.
Mm-hmm.
And he passed away about 2 years ago at 94. He still wore clothes he had from the 50s, and it was meticulously
timeless.
Kept. His stuff was meticulous, and my father, being Dominican guy, but he loved like European fashion, so he would have a lot of Italian suits and things like that. So I think when I got in high school and I could start fitting some of his clothes, I would wear a couple of his suits. I'll never forget my 21st birthday. I had a silk suit that I got from my father. It was a Lubium. It's an Italian company back. I don't even know if they're still in business, but an Italian gray sharkskin suit, and that was my favorite, double-breasted. I wore it on my 21st birthday with an ascot.
Back, in the early, the 20s, 30s, 40s, African Americans were known for fashion, and they were proud of being fashionable and being tailored. Then we got to a certain period, I would say maybe around the 80s, where we lost that in a sense, right?
I think from dressing up, I think that we never lost a sense of fashion, being that fashion is evolving and changing, and it's more casual. That's what happened. I think it just turned from being suit and tie and dressing up to, okay, I want to turn these jeans into something fashionable. I want to turn this polo into something fashionable. I want to turn this tracksuit or sweatsuit into fashion. That was a transition, I think, that happened, that people started looking outside of just the basic suits and dresses and things as fashion, and started looking at ways to be stylish casually.
I think we had gotten up to a point too, Miguel, where the men were wearing their pants sagging and hanging, and we just no longer had, I think, the pride that we used to have.
Somewhere along the line, we started idolizing prison fashion. And unfortunately, I think it's still somewhat prevalent today that our young men view affiliation with prison as being, something special. Okay, something tough, or something. I think that, I think at the most part, at the core of it, we look for respect on a certain level, and I think, we'll matriculate to where we feel we get the respect, and people respect when you say I've been in prison.
Right.
You understand?
Right.
Versus.
Do you think they respect that now?
No.
I know at the time they did.
Yeah.
We have a president that has 34 felonies, so.
Hey.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Right.
That part.
Yeah. Yeah, but let's talk about that. A lot of people say it in a negative way, though, Miguel, but I think also what we can say is, can this be used to tell people that you can too? Or do you think that's not really going to be?
Let me tell you something. There's always been a line in the saying for black people and white people.
Okay.
Don't get it twisted. Whatever they can do don't mean you can do it. And whatever they do and is viewed one way don't mean they're going to see you in the same light. They are the kings and queens of hypocrisy. So they'll say this matters until it's them. Then it no longer matters. Case in point, military service. Forever, military service was held at the highest regard. Okay, people respected that, and they demanded, patriotism, and he was up in an uproar about calling Kaepernick and guys kneeling, because it was so disrespectful to the flag. Okay. It's all right until they disrespect the flag and create insurrection at the Capitol. You see what I'm saying? Hypocrisy at the highest level. It's all right for you to you can't disrespect the military or military service until it's him saying, John McCain is not a hero. You see? So what we've learned through the process, more so than ever before, is that the hypocrisy is at its highest level. That what people say is important only matters if it's said by someone white or someone black.
So what do you think really happened in the election? Because if you look at the numbers, Kamala performed worse than almost any other opponent in our lifetime. Right? Her numbers did not. So what do you think? And all swing states went red. What do you think happened?
So first and foremost, I think that not enough of us, meaning people who really cared, voted. So if you look at, she got 10 million less votes than Joe Biden got. Trump won with 4 million less votes than what he lost with 4 years ago. So a total of 14 million less people voted. I think you have a high level of ignorance in this country. And that right there, so for one, I think that there's a lot of people on the Trump side who voted because of their fear of the country changing color. I think that a lot of people were influenced to vote in order to turn back the clock on black progression. And it's already happening on so many levels. I think you see the attack on DEI. You see this whole thing about being woke, in which actually just to me means, operating in truth and honesty. When you talk about the history of our country, and people don't want truth to be told. They want to tell a different version of facts. So fear is really the driving factor of why most people voted.
Let me ask you this, though. It seems as if in the past, the brown and blacks tend to stick together, right? And you happen to be a mixture of both. This election, though, has driven a wedge between African Americans and Hispanics, particularly, because what the Hispanics are saying is that they voted for their wallet. Many people are saying...
A lot of black people say that.
A lot of people are saying, listen, I'm going into the grocery store and I'm spending $8.99 for a carton of milk. I can't do this anymore. What are your thoughts on that, though? Because when we talk, and then also when you mentioned DEI, let's be clear, the attack on DEI started before this administration, because the administration hasn't even begun yet, right? Many of the corporations have removed DEI programs under Biden's administration. Yeah,
but you look, we're talking about the Elon Musk of the world. He was one of the first people to attack DEI, right? And look at him. He's now in such an influential position, owning so much media, and with such big pockets, giving money to Trump, that he controls a lot of that. He's a big part of the power that dictates how people move and think. So DEI, to me, was something that was people attacking it. And think about this, one of his first initiatives, Trump's initiatives, was to say that he's going to penalize institutions that, practice racism that has hurt white people.
Right.
That's
basically he used terms to say DEI.
Yeah, exactly.
Programs that helped us.
So he said disguised as equity. He said programs that are disguised as equity. So does that mean, how about the program of granting white people access to schools because their grandparents went to these institutions when our grandparents couldn't. You know, so there's no adjustment for the inequities that we suffered, and now you want to remove those that even try to help make the playing field level. Okay, so at the end of the day, they even try to say that, you know, like with pilots, for instance, they'll say, you know, we got all these black pilots because of DEI, but they're not qualified. Like, they had to pass the same test everybody else did. So it's operating out of fear, number one, but also out of misinformation. So they want to turn these, and you understand this, in these red states, you have the lowest education levels of people, okay? And these people are typically less informed, so they will believe information, be it truth or not, as long as they view it as something that's in favor of them. So
but wait a minute, when you say in favor of them, you know, Trump said he was going to deport any and all illegal aliens from this country, and many Hispanics have said, I'm still going to vote for him because I know I'm not doing anything wrong, and I'm going to believe that I won't be, or my family members won't be deported, because you can't vote if you're not, right? So people are willing to take that risk.
Well, I think that clearly, to me, it's an environment where people are saying, you know what, I'm here, I got mine, you get yours. And I don't know any other way to look at it.
Right.
Other than you just drawing a line in the sand that says, you know, as far as my cousins go, my brothers, my friends, y'all on your own. Because now these same people are the ones that are going to be subject to leaving. But what I don't think they bet on, for instance, is he even says that, I heard a guy say, well, is there a way to do this without separating the families? And he said, yeah. Send them all back.
Send them all back. That's what he said. Send them all back. He's not playing any games. No, but you know, he is being a gangster about it.
So for me personally, I believe that this is all part of God's plan on a bigger scale. That this country has to go through a purging of where we have to deal with truth and facts, and we have to go through this evil space and time. And just put it in perspective of my own personal experience. I didn't learn much in good times. When my pockets was nice and you know, life is good, I didn't learn anything.
That's right.
I learned through pain and suffering. I learned when I didn't have any money in my pocket, and when I had to reflect on where did I go wrong, where did I mess up in this process. And I had to think back and reflect. This is where the country is. We're going to have to go through a space of pain and suffering to where we have to reflect on what did we do wrong? What mistakes did we make? Okay? And fundamentally, you know, for me, operating in integrity with good character is the most important aspect.
But let me ask you this, though, Miguel. You mentioned a good point. So in business, there's your ups and downs, your ebbs and flows. With this most recent economy that we're living in, where people are, you know, struggling to make ends meet, have you seen a shift in your business with because your business is really a luxury, right? It's not a must-have. It's a luxury. So did you see a big shift in your business over this last administration?
You understand, people that make money make more money in certain environments. It comes at an expense to those who don't. What's happening is that the gap between average and above average is widening. The haves and the have-nots are widening. So I just understand business from a standpoint that there's going to be ups and there's going to be downs. I don't always attribute it to the political environment. People who, you know, may work jobs and may look at, okay, well, you know, we did well here, we're not doing well there. It's this person's fault or that person's fault. I just think that business is cyclical. Mm-hmm. It runs in cycles. The interest rate's going to be high for sometimes. The interest rate's going to be low. Mm-hmm. You know, access to capital is going to be good at sometimes. It's going to be bad at other times. Mm-hmm. It's business, and you know, it's going to be up and down. You try to do well when things are going great, and try to operate, you know, smartly when it's not.
Yeah, I think the day after the election, I had that same conversation with a lot of my clients because, you know, a lot of people were very distraught. Mm-hmm. Their mental health was challenged and so forth. And I kept saying to them, this is not the time to melt. This is the time to figure out how do you structure yourself to win. Mm. And I think that's what everyone should be focusing on now, because if you stay in a position of I've lost, you will lose. Mm-hmm. But I know that silently, a lot of the same folks who had a lot of public things to say about Trump sent texts on the side and said, but guess what, sis? My Bitcoin went up by 100%. My stocks have gone up, and I'm just going to keep my head down and try to make some money over these next 4 years. And so I think people have to get themselves out of their own way, in a sense. And not saying that we should just ignore misjustices. Mm-hmm. But I think how you approach them will determine how you survive over these next 4 years.
So understand this. In this environment, no one says, okay, black people, I'm going to do this to you. White people, I'm going to do this for you. Mm-hmm. Everything's done through policy. Policy affects people differently and disproportionately. Mm-hmm. The question is, what side of the policy are you on?
That's right.
Based on whether you benefit or not. I think the thing is, we tend to think from a policy standpoint on how it affects others more so than ourselves individually. Mm-hmm. See what I'm saying? So when you say DEI, you know, hey, I'm self-employed. I don't know, DEI doesn't really matter to me on a certain level. Mm-hmm. It matters to me from a perspective of my cousins, my sisters, my family, my friends, people that I want to see still prosper. Mm-hmm. You see, but there are those of us, if you work in business yourself, chances are the policies in place will benefit us. Mm-hmm. So it's not from a personal standpoint that we feel defeated. It's from a standpoint of just overall the effects on our people.
We also have to get to a point too, Miguel, where we don't get to a point of forgetting about being our brother or sister's keeper. Mm-hmm. Because even though DEI may not matter to us right now, mm-hmm. I look back to little Ebony that applied to Virginia Commonwealth University that was accepted into the minority program at VCU that was created for high potential young African American urban students. Had they not had that program, I may not have been accepted, and was given an opportunity that changed my life. Right. So even though today, I still can't forget about then, and I think so many of us, we tend to forget about everybody behind us mm-hmm. once we get to a certain level. Mm-hmm. And so we have to remember, it's not just about us.
Right. So I think it's a difference in the era we're in. I think many of us, you know, I had my grandfather around me all the time, and he would talk about voting and mm-hmm. how, like, what voting was like when he was growing up, and the sacrifices that people made for us to vote today, the importance of certain things that were sacrifices that our ancestors went through. I think about the slavery. I think about, mm-hmm. you know, I'm good friends with Wes Moore, our only black governor, mm-hmm. making suits. And, you know, when he was elected into office, he actually started at the slave docks in Maryland. Mm. And he marched from there to the state capitol. And in his speech, he said, hey, I'm intentional about doing it because those were my ancestors, and they probably never saw a day when a black man would be here on the steps of this capitol that they actually built as well. Mm-hmm. So there are people like him that understand the responsibility that we have to each other. We don't stand in these businesses on these pillars of success alone. We stand on the shoulders of people who has helped us to create these opportunities to get us here. So for me, I will never forget about where I came from and the situation that in which benefit me. This is what drives a lot of my activities and my businesses. You know, I do the Fashion Polo Classic, where it's a luxury event, and we highlight African American business on a luxury level. So we need to see each other in these businesses doing great things, you know. And I saw something on IG today, and it talked about in the 50s how you need to appeal to black men in business. You need to appeal to their need for importance. You need to. That's why they like to wear wear the brands. They want brand names. They want this. They want that. And you know, I said, you know, the thing is, we need to understand the importance of doing business with each other more than anything. Building our businesses, because otherwise, all we're doing is enabling our kids to work for their kids forever. See, and this is where legacy comes in, and the thought process of advancing from a place that they've taken us.
Yeah. I think understanding to have that ownership and the pride in having ownership is what we need to go back to. Because let me ask you this is just a fashion faux pas type situation. When you mention about the brands, what do you think about that when you see all of the monograms on the suits and all of that? As a fashion guru, what would you recommend to a client that came in and said, okay, I want that next Gucci suit with the G's all over it, or the Fendi? I just saw somebody, I think it was maybe at one of your polo events, that had a whole lot of the Fendi. What's the trend with that? What do you think about that as far as a faux pas? Or,
you know, what's crazy about it is that we will spend our money with people who don't respect us in order to impress people that don't like us. We will spend our money with people that don't even respect us. Gucci had ads out there with big lips showing all this stuff.
But what about Dapper Dan?
Dapper Dan, that was an opportunity created for him. I'm proud of him. I'm happy for him. But Dapper Dan is one guy. They take one person and they elevate that one person as, okay, here's your... Just like in politics, you know, they give a black man the HUD job. Okay, you over housing, urban development. Okay, they don't put us in other roles in government. So Dapper Dan is an exception, not the rule. You know, there are a lot of black brands, and that's why even with, like I said, my event, I showcase black-owned spirits. We spend a lot of money on liquor, wine, beers, but do we spend it with ourselves within our own community?
But can we?
Yes.
But well, you saw what happened with Diddy.
Yeah, because Diddy partnered with Diageo, but that wasn't his brand. I mean, he put his name on it, but I'm saying brands that were, you know, when you come to my event, you have black-owned brands that have a story of why it started, how it started, the process they went through, and these guys tell you about, you know, why I created this tequila or this wine or this black-owned
and it's so difficult for them because if your bar or restaurant doesn't have the distribution licenses and so forth, you can create these spirits, but they'll never see the light of day. So
we have to, number one, become aware of them, and then two, we have to go into these where we buy our spirits from and request them. We have to request them, and we need to go to where the bars that we go to and say, hey, I want Greenwood whiskey. I want Uncle Nearest. You have to say specifically what I want, because, and I think that the restaurants are really where the greatest opportunity for black-owned brands to excel and start getting a name through the process of, because that's the lowest point of entry into the market. It's hard to get a distributor, but if you get into a restaurant and come up with a signature cocktail and say, okay, we're going to do this signature cocktail made with, you know, St. Royale vodka or Greenwood or whatever, then then they use that as a part of the recipe. But that's just one aspect of it. I just think that until we start requesting and requiring black-owned everything, okay, we're spending money everywhere. We have probably one of the greatest. If you looked at the income of African Americans in the United States, it's equivalent to economies of large countries. Mm-hmm. We're literally a country within. I don't know where we'd be ranked, but we'd be. But
95% of our dollars go outside of our community.
And look at it. It's only an issue when we say spending money with each other, while everyone does it. Everyone else already does it. Mm-hmm. See, and now we being racist or whatever because we say, spend your money with each other.
But I think a lot of our money goes out too. So, like, say our professional football players and basketball players, their money immediately comes right in, and then through a divorce, half of it goes out of our community anyway. So it's just we're writing checks. I look at, when I think about it, and I just...
Well, look at that for a second, though. If I'm a proponent of love. I think that God created... I hate that we have to look at things so black and white because I don't believe that's God's will. I think he created people to love each other. Mm-hmm. It's just that we're forced in this environment because we're a segment of the community that's under attack, that through our historical situations have been put at a distinct disadvantage financially. Mm-hmm. Okay, and so we have to do stuff to bring us all up. We are the most injured through the process of this country. Even the Indians were given reparations and given casinos and ways to make great large amounts of wealth, and they help each other. We are the only ones that have been disrespected to the point that they don't even feel we're worthy of DEI. We're not even worthy of a policy that would make us equitable, yet alone giving us our 40 acres and a mule. Okay? That's a level of disrespect that should drive us to a point of, you know what, I'm done dealing with y'all.
But when you say dealing with y'all, like, how can we not deal?
Well, you have a choice in how you spend your money. Okay, we have plenty of black-owned brands that we choose not to even work with because we have any. The issue is we tend to look at each other inferiorly. Understand it. So, again, and I hate referring, this is why it's so important. My event is around luxury because I want you to see black-owned, black brands, black companies operating at a much higher level. We always give this $5 T-shirt money to each other. But when it comes to $300, $400 T-shirts, we're gonna go give it to Gucci. The people that we want to impress them in the store, so I can afford this. You want to make a statement that nobody cares about.
That's right.
I noticed when during COVID, after COVID, Gucci opened back up. They had the big lip thing and everything. As soon as COVID lifted, there were long lines. Long lines. They made you actually wait to come in the door. Okay, and my brand's right there. We do great work. I'm right in the same mall. Okay, you can come in and get treated exceptionally well, and we don't look at each other the same. We look at as you're black owned, so you're not as good. We've been taught that though.
Yeah, and I think also we also are fighting against imposter syndrome every day, and we feel that once we are clothed by them, that we are them.
Exactly.
That's what we. So Miguel, what's next for you? What's coming up next? I know you just closed out with the Polo Classic.
I don't know if you know, we did something amazing there. For the first time ever, and this is through my foundation, we had 2 all-black youth polo teams play against each other. And these all-black boys, 11 to 14-year-olds, play polo. I don't know if that's ever been done anywhere. We had a black team, boys from Maryland.
So I'm sure you attributed it back to your youth.
This is all part of my great-grandmother's legacy, who helped pay for my riding lessons back then. But I just wanted to say that because that's one of the things I'm very proud of, the fact that my wife and I were instrumental in changing these boys' lives, but also just changing what people see. See, I think it's so important that when you see something, you can't unsee it.
That's right.
Right. And so just seeing something different outside, that makes you say, that's, what can I do? How can I inspire this generation differently? But, what's next? Okay, so I have a TV show called Because It's His Day Too.
Okay.
That I'm very excited and happy about. We'll be filming in our stores, showcasing men getting married.
Oh.
Right.
Okay.
And what's so great about that is that, all men will showcase, but our audience is primarily black men.
Mm-hmm.
And so to see black men, and for the world to see black men in this environment is life-changing.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're not used to seeing us in love with the woman.
And celebrating that.
And celebrating that.
Mm-hmm.
We're not seeing us. I have so many brothers come in the store, and they are taking care of kids that they did not raise, they're not birth.
Mm-hmm.
And I see, these guys who even come from, maybe even coming from prison, changing their life around and building successful businesses and going on to, lock in with a special woman in life and go on. But another amazing thing happens that I want to showcase on my show. And that is, I do this thing called a groom's lounge, where the groom gets to bring his friends in and they have toasts to the groom. And they tell these amazing stories about, the experiences together. But they also tell each other how much they love each other, how proud they are of each other. The world is so comfortable seeing black men on the ground with a knee in their neck, with the negativity of what we go through. We need to show the real side of black men. You're showing 5% of us. I don't know brothers that do that type of stuff. But I see every day in my store black men who have friends that's a great support systems, who have respect, who operate with just love in their heart and care and concern for the community. My purpose, I believe, through this process to show the world black men in a different light. And so I'm really happy about the TV show situation and being able to share in just the whole experience of men getting married, because too often women get all the accolades and but men, and particularly today, we're paying for the weddings.
Yeah, that's a big change.
Not like
right back in the day.
Father of the bride used to pay,
right.
right? And so that doesn't happen anymore, really. Bro, you get out, you go pay for your own stuff. So, for them to spend the money, I want them to be celebrated, and I think they need to be seen. This is probably, think about it, a wedding is probably the biggest party that most people will ever throw in their life.
Yeah, yeah.
And the man, in most cases, is financing a big part of that. So for him to have that one day where he can look his very best, feel wonderful, and for the world to, his friends and all, to elevate him and celebrate that.
I think to have black men celebrated and to celebrate love with the woman and then love with their friends. I think that's amazing.
Well, let me make a distinction too, just because I know it's an attack on the LGBTQ these days too. In my stores we celebrate love between people. And I don't care whether it's, who it is, because, we all should have the freedom to love who we want without being attacked or mistreated or talked about. And I think people in this environment are comfortable mistreating each other because starting from the presidency down, they make it comfortable being disrespectful to people that aren't like them. And that's a problem.
So what else is next?
So we have that. We did something great this year for the first time at Polo Classic Weekend. We did a black tie fight night.
Oh, wow.
Yes, we have a black tie party with boxing. And so this year, 2025, I'll be doing the first one in D.C. I plan to do it at the African American Museum.
Okay.
And then I'll bring it back to Atlanta for New Year's next year.
You need to bring Tyson out.
Yeah. Mike Tyson.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, everybody say I look like him.
You
so.
kind of favorite Tyson a little bit. But you should bring him up. What did you think about this fight this past weekend?
I'm happy for him. You know, he's 50. We're the same age. And I can't imagine being in the ring for 8 rounds. So what he did was amazing. I think that, you know, it's all marketing to me. If you can make money, if you can take your name and put it on something and people pay you for it, that's amazing.
And let me say this, too, about him as we close. The other thing that he did that reminds me of what you just said, I saw a headline that he earned $20 million from this fight, and he gave all $20 million to his wife.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he gave it to her to celebrate her. He said because when he went bankrupt years before, his previous wives and girlfriends left him. And he said with this particular wife, she stood by him for over the last 15 years, and he wanted to show her how much he appreciated her. And there was a lot of negative comments. But again, here is a black...
They're still together, though, right?
They're still together.
Okay, so he still got the money?
Yeah, he still got the money, right? Right, he still got the money. But you know...
I wouldn't be opposed to doing the same thing for my wife, because
right.
I know that, you know, I don't know, my wife likes to spend a lot of money, though, so I have some safeguards on it. But, you know, it's us.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's one thing that's a problem in marriages, period. I think that people see, you know, themselves individually versus collectively together. So for him to give his money to his wife, he didn't give it to her. They still got it together.
They still got it together. And I think the celebration, though, of love, and for it to come from someone like Mike.
Well, understand, you know, and I said it before, you learn most through your pain and suffering. And he suffered more pain and suffering than most.
Yeah. Through
a whole lifetime of situations. Money, and he's had money. He understands how limited happiness money can provide. You know, you can't buy with so many cars, you can't buy with so many houses. And at some point, money loses its value. It is negative returns, okay? It depreciates. There's no value. That's right. At a certain point. It's called diminishing returns on money.
I often say that too. Once you get to a certain point, it's just money is money is money.
Right. You have a point of diminishing return on the happiness that money can provide.
That's right.
So, you know, that's from a business standpoint.
Yep.
You know, once you get to a certain amount and you've acquired, you know, all the things that your heart desires, at that point it loses its value.
That's right.
There's no more benefit to it. So your value at that point goes to how can I affect other people? How can I impact others' lives? And that's where your happiness starts to come from.
Yep, the philanthropy.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Miguel. I appreciate you coming out today. I appreciate you having this conversation with me and sharing some of your internal thoughts. Yeah. Thank you so much.
This was pretty deep. But thank you. I don't know that I've ever had a podcast to this, you know, to this level. So I really appreciate you.
No, thank you. And I appreciate your transparency.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I'll see you guys next time on Coinology. Welcome to Coinology, the podcast.
You ain't getting no money if you constantly worried about what everybody else got to say. If you constantly got your eyes on what everybody else doing, you ain't getting no money. When it comes down to closing a deal, I get it done. Every single one. I'm the certified deal closer.
Welcome to Coinology, the podcast.